Let me tell you a financial story that didn't start with a loss on paper. It didn't involve a bad trade, a market crash, or a risky investment. In fact, it didn't cost me a single euro up front. That's why it took me years to understand how expensive it really was. The mistake was free advice. At the time, it felt harmless. Someone I trusted shared a confident perspective about money. It sounded reasonable. It sounded calm. Most importantly, it sounded finished. And when you're busy, tired, and juggling normal life, finished is incredibly attractive. I already knew the basics. I understood saving, investing, diversification. I could explain why long-term thinking mattered. That knowledge gave me confidence, and that confidence made the mistake easier. Because I confused understanding with ownership. The advice didn't come with a sales pitch. There was no pressure, no urgency, no obvious agenda. That's what made it dangerous. It slipped past my defenses because I didn't treat it like advice. I treated it like relief. What I really accepted wasn't a strategy. I accepted certainty. And certainty feels good when you're exhausted. It feels like progress, even when nothing has actually changed. The real cost showed up quietly, not in one dramatic moment, but in small, invisible ways. I stopped checking my own numbers regularly. I stopped updating my personal overview. I stopped asking myself uncomfortable questions, because I felt like the thinking had already been done. Nothing went wrong right away. That's the trap. Most financial mistakes don't announce themselves. They arrive disguised as peace. For a while, everything felt calmer. I spent less time thinking about money. I felt less friction, less doubt. But what I had really done was remove friction from the wrong place. I had outsourced my responsibility. Here's the part that matters. The advice itself wasn't extreme. It wasn't reckless. It wasn't obviously bad. It was reasonable. And reasonable advice that isn't yours can cost you more than terrible advice you reject immediately. Because when something is reasonable, you follow it. You don't question it deeply. You don't stress test it against your own behavior. You don't ask how it will hold up when motivation disappears. Slowly, I stopped practicing the skill that actually protects you financially. Paying attention when it's boring. The loss wasn't money. The loss was consistency. Weeks passed where I didn't really look. Months passed where I didn't adjust. Years passed where I was doing fine without actually building momentum. And momentum is everything. People talk a lot about returns. They talk about percentages. They argue about markets. But the most powerful financial force in a normal person's life is not a brilliant decision. It's the absence of resets. Every time you stop paying attention, you reset. Every time you abandon a process, you reset. Every time you rely on someone else's certainty, you reset. Free advice made resetting easy. When discomfort arrived, normal volatility, normal doubt, I didn't have a process to lean on. I had a slogan. And slogans don't help when uncertainty shows up at night. Nothing exploded. There was no disaster. Just lost time. Lost years of small improvements that never compounded. Lost habits that would have quietly built stability. Lost confidence in my own judgment. That's when I understood why it was expensive. The cost of free advice is not measured in fees. It's measured in the years you stop building quietly. Let me make this practical. Free advice becomes dangerous when it does three things. First, it steals your attention. Once you adopt someone else's framework, you stop asking your own questions. Small leaks go unnoticed. Subscriptions pile up. Convenience spending becomes invisible. Second, it steals your patience. Simple advice creates the illusion that progress should feel smooth. When it doesn't, frustration follows. And frustration leads to reaction. Third, it steals your identity. You start repeating a plan you didn't design. When it stops fitting your life, you don't know how to adjust it. You don't defend it because you don't own it. That was the real loss, not money, ownership. So what replaces that? Not more information, not better tips, not a smarter person to listen to. What replaces it is a boring system you can run when you're tired. Here's the one that changed everything for me. Once a month, I do 3 things. First, a simple inventory. 15 minutes. What came in? What went out? What changed? Big categories only. No perfection, just visibility. Second, one automatic move. A transfer that happens without debate. Savings, investing, or debt reduction. The amount matters less than the fact that it's automatic. Third, one deliberate decision. Cancel one thing. Reduce one cost.
Add one friction. Not everything, just one. That's it. No spreadsheets that require motivation. No heroic discipline. Just a process that survives bad weeks. When you do this consistently, something shifts. You stop needing someone else's certainty. You stop searching for reassurance. You become calmer because your system doesn't depend on mood. And that's the real lesson. Free advice isn't bad because it's free. It's expensive when it replaces your habits. It's expensive when it weakens your attention. It's expensive when it makes you passive. If advice strengthens your process, it's worth listening to. If it bypasses your process, it will cost you time you can't get back. So the next time someone offers you a confident answer about money, pause. Ask yourself one question. Does this help me build a system I can maintain? If the answer is no, the price may not show up today, but it will show up eventually. And by then, the bill won't be financial. It will be time.